They grew up together, attended the same schools, played the same sports, and now they teach together? It's Best Friends DC and DH on the D&D Dynamite 80s podcast. All right, welcome in, guys, to another podcast. This one is very special to us. We are going to discuss some 80s, but it's a serious topic. We have a very, very special guest, Meaghan Good, who is the founder of the Charley Project. And the way I understand the Charley Project, it's one of the most, or one of the largest places that you can find information about missing people. Would that be pretty accurate?
Yeah, it is. In terms of number of cases on the website, it's the second largest one in the country.
Okay.
The largest one is run by the Fed, so I can't compete with that.
Sure. Okay. Well, we appreciate you taking some time with us tonight. Why got you interested in pursuing this kind of thing?
I was 12 years old, and I liked to write short stories. And I wanted to get some pictures of kids that looked like the kids that I imagined appearing in my short stories. And so I was looking on the internet trying to find just pictures of kids. And I stumbled across the website for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and got sucked in. And I've been really interested in missing persons ever since then. And now I'm 36.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we're located here in Tennessee, and we talked a little bit ahead of time about this, and you pulled 4 fascinating cases that I had a chance to kind of look at. Go ahead and, if you want to, go ahead and give us a little bit of information about the first one.
Well, chronologically speaking, the first case under discussion here would be Charles Hall III, who disappeared from Nashville in 1981 on New Year's Eve.
Okay.
He was 15 years old. It seems like he was a pretty good kid, a sophomore in high school. He lived with his family and apparently wasn't causing any problems. He went to see his girlfriend his ex-girlfriend. They had recently broken up, and I guess he wanted to get back together with her, and she told him no. And so he left her apartment crying and said that she asked him where he was going, and he just said, "Don't worry about it." And that was it. He was never seen again. Yeah,
that one kind of sticks out for sure to me as just a kind of a puzzler one. It sounds to me like distraught young man over the breakup, that kind of thing. But, to be that close to the house, I don't know, kind of baffled me a little bit on that one.
And unfortunately, back in those days, when a teenager disappeared, it was automatically pretty much considered a runaway, unless, there were like 5 witnesses to an abduction.
Sure.
And the police, the police have a lot on their plate always. And missing persons cases, particularly back then, were just often neglected, and reports got lost. And it's not, I wouldn't even say necessarily that they didn't care, because I don't know who was investigating the case back then. Or I don't want to armchair quarterback. I'm just speaking, in a general way.
Right. From your experience of doing this, a case that is as old as the Charles Hall case, the longer this time goes on and on and on, and people that were involved in the case, end up being deceased or whatever, it's tougher to try to solve, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very difficult to solve a really old case, but I mean, it does still happen every day.
Okay.
All around the world. And
okay.
After a while, you could argue that time kind of becomes your friend, because let's say I don't know, there were some witnesses back then who didn't come forward, maybe because they were kids at the time and they had certain loyalties, maybe to family members or to friends that they don't have now. And it's possible that somewhere down the line, a potential witness in the Charles Hall case could find out that he is still missing and be rather horrified and think, I need to go to the police now and tell them what I know, what I should have done years ago.
Sure.
Plus,
so
there's the technology advancing.
Makes sense. That makes perfect sense. DH, you on board? You can hear us?
Yeah, I'm on. I had to temporarily get on with the phone. As soon as the computer connects, I'll be right back on there with that too.
No problem.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're talking that one of the first cases there with and it's just down the street from us. We're very close to Nashville.
Yeah, that was the one in Nashville down on was it 40th Avenue, I believe?
Down in that area somewhere, yeah. So, and fascinating information here. Teenager, kind of distraught over the breakup of his girlfriend, and
Right.
it just kind of all of this lays out at one time. Just ironic how that disappearance takes place without a lot of clues to it. Just a sad situation. Am I right in saying that I think he was like 15?
Yeah, he was 15.
Okay. So just a sad situation there for sure. So, like I said, guys, what's important is this: you need to get on the Charley Project and look for those cases that are in your areas. You may think you know nothing about what's going on, but it may be someone else that you're passing the information on that can help this situation. But it's got to get out there and continue just passing that information on. Would you agree, Meaghan?
Oh, yes. And one of the things about the internet is that there's all these people around the world, each, throwing their own puzzle piece in and making connections. And then eventually, the picture becomes clear. I've had cases where just some random person wound up solving the case just by having a little bit of knowledge no one else had, or by seeing something, and making a connection that no one else saw.
Right. Tell me a little bit about the young lady from Chattanooga. I believe she was about that same age as well, 15, maybe?
Yeah, she was 15 also. Beautiful young lady. She was
coming home from
she
school.
Was in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, your standard teenager. She liked pizza. She liked rap music.
Sure.
And she was walking home from school. She went to City High School where she was a freshman.
Chattanooga.
And somebody saw her being kidnapped, being dragged, presumably kicking and screaming, into a car.
Right.
And they saw multiple people kidnapping her and dragging her into this car. And this person that they chased after the car, but they lost it. And they called 911, and they had the license plate number of the car. And meanwhile, when this girl, Tanetta Carlisle was her name, she doesn't get home from school. So her mom goes to the police and files a missing persons report. But the police, for whatever reason, don't make the connection between this reported abduction and the missing girl, perhaps because of her age. They were probably, again, assuming she ran away from home. This was in 1989.
Sure.
And then the plate number of the vehicle was traced back to a convicted rapist who was on parole. And I think he realized that he was going to get caught for this. And he killed himself.
Sure.
Wasn't there something I read in there that he also kind of similar right around that time, they suspected him of raping and maybe murdering another individual? I was thinking there was something in there.
But the thing is, even though that particular suspect is now deceased, there were multiple people involved in this abduction. There are probably people still alive who know what happened to this young lady.
There you go. That's exactly what I was going to say. Because from the witness he was not the only one that was supposedly was there. So, yeah, there's other people that know the story here. Yeah.
Well,
Great point.
yeah, and
I think it's very likely she did not live very long. She was probably killed that same day. That's usually how it goes down.
Right. And I guess, obviously, if people that were involved in this terrible thing are still alive, it's tough to get it out of them because, even though this family needs closure on this case, I guess that's the rub to this is like, I'm taking this to the grave kind of philosophy, which is sad. That you have no conscience that you're affecting your family's life, along with obviously this young girl's life that you've held for ransom, basically.
This may wind up, getting sold possibly with a jailhouse snitch.
Confession.
Because, criminals, they talk to each other, they tell stories.
Sure.
And especially when it's the abduction and presumably the murder of a young girl. This isn't like, I burglarized somebody's house and stole some stuff. This is a very serious offense.
Sure.
Right.
And it's something that would cause moral outrage, even in people who commit crimes.
Yeah. In jail setting. Yeah.
And kind of just to reiterate what DC was talking about, folks, if you have anything, even the smallest tidbit of information, you may think it's insignificant, but it may help these families find closure or help find some of these missing individuals.
Absolutely.
Please reach out and make sure and keep check in with the Charley Project. I mean, this is so important, especially, going back into these code cases. I mean, could you imagine, we're both parents. Could you imagine just not knowing what's happened to your child? I
cannot, brother. I could not rationalize that. I could not. It's a sad scenario.
People talk about it being like the worst nightmare for parents if your kid dies. And I don't have children myself, but I do have siblings, and 2 of them have died. So my parents twice lost a son. And the thing is, it's not as bad as when a kid disappears, because my parents know where their sons are. They can visit their graves. They know they're not scared or hurt or suffering because they're dead. Yeah. And if you don't know what happens, that's basically a wound that never, ever closes.
Exactly.
Great point.
And
right.
And also the point of just knowing that your child has no idea there's death, no one to turn to. I mean, it's just, wow. I could not have done that.
No, absolutely. So we'll do a wrap on or wrap up on all these cases. Give a little information, just a summary of all of them here at the end. Another one that's kind of interesting. It's ironic that you chose it. This is kind of where my mom grew up. In the area, Dixon County. The little girl Martha Green, another teenager from White Bluff, DH, down. Yep. Like I said, kind of where my mom grew up. So this one kind of touched my heart too when I seen it and read about it. Kind of knew the area where she had the car had run out of gas. Been there many times, right on that highway. And know exactly about where that is, and it's going to be different from now on when I go by that that particular area of the highway, knowing this story. Another one where she was she decided to stay with the car. The person that was with her went to get the gas in another car, and they presumed that it was this particular person that has a record that was involved in it. Ended up he got killed I believe in jail later on in years, and once again one of those that's kind of laying out there without a definite solve to it yet.
Yeah, and her mother died without ever finding out.
Oh my gosh,
what happened. And
Oh.
it also has to be it must have had a significant impact on her brother because, he left her alone in that car and went to get gas. He didn't know what was going to happen. And of
Sure.
course somebody had to get gas, but I'm sure he must have felt bad.
What a burden. What a burden.
Probably
Yeah,
blamed
that he's
himself
living
for
with.
what happened, even
What
though
he's
it wasn't
living
his
with.
fault.
Sure. Sure.
Without conscience. I mean, even though it's not his fault, it's still that process and that thought process we all go through. What if, what if, what if?
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Just awful.
I think
What would be that's all these cases are really really got age on them now, and so what would be one of your suggestions of trying to get it back, maybe into the limelight a little bit more? Because I'm sure all these these law enforcement folks have so much on their plate that these cold cases, a lot of times get away from them, that they kind of forget about them.
Well, I think harnessing the power of social media helps a lot.
Yep.
I mean, there has been a lot of information coming out in podcasts and such run by, ordinary people because news reporters that work for regular newspapers have certain restrictions on what they can report. Like, if the family is like, we're 100% sure that so-and-so did it, but the police are not saying anything one way or the other, they can't put that person's name in the newspaper.
Right. They're handcuffed
because they don't
on
want to get sued.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Journalistic ethics and all that. But podcasts, you can make your own rules and you can tell the story and get people interested. And there was actually a case that I know of, a missing persons case, that got solved in part because of a podcast.
Oh, wow.
Basically, this person had done an entire podcast, not just one episode, but an entire podcast on this particular case. And because of that, there were news articles running saying, hey, this case is being covered in this podcast. And the person who had killed this woman, once it started making the news again after all these years, I guess his conscience started to bother him and he confessed to it.
Right.
And it wouldn't have happened if it weren't for a podcast.
Wow. Fantastic. Fantastic.
And anybody can create, a Facebook page or go on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter and talk about, their missing persons case on there. There's a young woman in Arizona who has done some excellent TikToks about her missing younger sister. It's one of those cases where they're quite sure what happened and who did it, but the girl is still missing.
Gotcha. Social media. It can be a blessing too. It can definitely be a blessing. And let's kind of wrap up the detail on this last one, because this is the one that breaks my heart the most, and we're going to leave it for the last here. Talk about the little 4-year-old.
Yeah, her name was Marlena Childress or Childress. I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
Mm-hmm.
And now her mom says that, she disappeared because, she was out playing in the front yard, and then her mom heard car brakes and went to check on her and sees the car, but doesn't see her daughter. And so she was saying, this was a kidnapping. But then 2 months later, she changed her story and said, I actually killed her myself and dumped the body in the river. And then she implicated some other guy in this. And so the police go and talk to him. And he's like, I don't know what she's talking about. I barely know this lady. And then she recanted her confession. She's like, yeah, I didn't actually kill her. She was definitely kidnapped. And she said the mother, it clearly had some emotional problems going on.
Right.
But she made a bunch of conflicting statements about Marlena's disappearance. At one point, she said that she had sold her. And then she actually got charged with second-degree murder in one point. Even though the body has never been found. She was actually charged, but then they wound up dropping it for lack of evidence, because murder without a body cases are becoming more frequent now, but back in the 1980s, they were much less common. And then in 2002, this woman, Marlena's mother, took her 12-year-old son, Marlena's brother, to a cemetery in Kentucky and stabbed him. It tried to kill him, and the child survived, fortunately, and the mother went to prison for attempted murder, but she's out now. And it's still very much up in the air what happened to Marlena. I mean, the mom's stories, she doesn't seem to know right from left. She's telling all sorts of different stories as to what happened. And I suppose it is still possible that she was actually kidnapped.
To me, of all the 4 cases that you've brought on here, that last one to me, it is ringing big time that the mother obviously had something to do with this.
Yeah, and it's just so sad, because this is a beautiful child. And I mean, no 4-year-old deserves to have that, whatever happened to her, happen to them.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
and
not.
It's a very unfortunate fact that when a kid, especially a little kid, disappears, the prime suspect there is often the parent.
Right. Somebody in the immediate family, for sure.
Sometimes you just have a parent who should never have had children in the first place.
Absolutely.
Sometimes especially if there's like drugs involved, or if there's like a serious mental illness going on in the family. Like, I mean, this wouldn't apply to Marlena's mother, but one of the things is, like, a lot of psychiatric drugs that people take to keep their mental illness under control, you can't take when you're pregnant. So then you go off the drugs while you're pregnant, and now you're the parent of a newborn and you have an untreated mental illness.
Right.
And so that can lead to problems. I don't know what was going on with Marlena's mother, but I really wish she would just finally tell the truth after all this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Write a letter and like leave it in the safe deposit box for people to find when you're dead, or something. And I wonder, is she even sorry? Does she even think about it?
Right.
Does she even think about her daughter at all?
Have a conscience. Yeah. Go ahead, DH.
That's one of the things that, DC, you and I were kind of talking about, was kind of the parental morality issue when you're involving, like, especially a younger child. And, we were kind of talking the difference between today and the 80s. But, this is something that's been going on probably as far back as history.
Sure.
To be honest with you. And it's just, wow. I mean, I think one of the reasons this whole thing resonates so much with me is because these are the not the 4-year-old, but the other kids are the age groups that we teach every day. I mean, these are the kids we see going through life struggles. And just to think at any day, one of those kids, this could happen to, it just.
In their situation, sure.
Yeah. It's just a scary thought. And I'm just so appreciative of the Charley Project and the work done on behalf of these cold cases. So hopefully someone that watches this will have some information that would help, resolve some of these. Right.
Absolutely. Ditto that, man. Meaghan, just to kind of piggyback off what DH was talking there about, what would be, I don't know, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but how can people just continue to help and get the word out there on all these sad cases?
Well, again, the power of social media is immense. It can be used for both good and bad. And just sharing information about missing persons on your social media feed, and that just telling people about the stories. I kind of see myself as kind of a professional storyteller. When I'm writing this website, I'm trying to tell the story as to what happens.
Sure.
And I view the site as as much for it, like a memorial as it is to help find people.
Yeah.
But
And
it's amazing what ordinary people can do to help solve cases. Like I mentioned, ordinary people on the internet making connections. A lot of times there have been many cases of ordinary people being able to match unidentified bodies to missing persons. There's a case I know of that this man disappeared from Texas, and then 2 days later he turned up in Arizona, and he was hit by a truck and he was killed. And he didn't have any ID on him or anything, and was a couple of states away from where he had vanished from. So they had no idea who he was. And 10 years passed, and a lady from Ireland was looking at
Wow.
the Arizona John Does, because they've got, a lot of times governments will have online databases of their unidentified and they're missing. Police departments will have these, and individual states will have their own databases. And she was just comparing them to missing persons on the Charley Project, trying to see if she could pick anything up. And then she realizes, hey, this missing guy and this John Doe in Arizona are like wearing the same necklace.
wow.
Isn't that something? So it can be something as small as that.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing. So there's hope. There's hope.
There is, and one of the things I would kind of add to that, working since I work in technology, would be that, folks, no matter if you were in or around a location on these dates, go back through your pictures, submit your pictures, because you never know what might be in the background that you're not picking up on that somebody else may. So
especially a public place that you were at and there were pictures made. Exactly. Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, I remember a couple of months ago, a woman jumped off a bridge in New York City, and they didn't know who she was. And someone happened to be taking some cell phone video in the vicinity, and they happened to catch her in the background of their video just seconds before she jumped. And they actually used the video footage when they were putting out information, appeals saying, can you help identify this?
Wow. Good stuff. Yeah, amazing.
With technology today, you never know what you've caught in the background of pictures. And to be honest with you, most of us, when we look at pictures, I don't pay a lot of attention what's in the background, but it may be something very important.
That's crucial. Yeah.
Family get some resolution.
Absolutely. Meaghan, will you please give us, our listeners, the detailed information about how to keep up with what you got on your webpage and where to find it?
It's charleyproject.org. Charley is spelled with an L-E-Y. It was named after a little boy who was kidnapped in the 1870s. They never found him. And if you go to the front page of charleyproject.org, you'll see there's like a missing person listed, which changes every week. And then at the bottom, there's all the links. And I've got updates, and the site gets updated quite regularly. I updated it today. In fact, there was a resolved case and 2 updated cases, and 6 cases got added. And I also archived my updates. They're by month. So, we're about to get into May, and then I'll archive the April one, but you'll still be able to find it on the page. It'll just be in a different section.
Right. And it is, DH, I know you've been there as well. Oh, yeah. It is well put together and fantastically done. Very easy to follow. Find your local areas, which I did very easily. It's very friendly to get on there. And please get, take some time. We waste so much time on social media that's for the wrong reasons sometimes. And waste of time, where we could do something like this and maybe make a difference.
Definitely. And folks, I would encourage you, go to the Charley Project.
Yep.
Check it out. Go back to it. Keep reviewing it, because you never know what may trigger something or what you may find that can help some of these folks out to resolve some of these issues. Meaghan, I appreciate everything you do. It's definitely a calling. Definitely a calling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very, very fortunate to have you in charge of a program like this. And man, I'm just blown away with it. It just is a sad, sad situation that we're in. And maybe we can make a difference in some cases here somewhere.
Yeah, the internet has solved so many crimes.
Yeah.
And especially like now that they're tracking, they're like, if you join Ancestry and you submit your DNA, then like the cops could possibly use it if your like second cousin turns out to be a serial killer or something. That they'll take DNA from crime scenes and they'll try to figure out from Ancestry, from the genetic database.
Got it. Yeah.
To.
Gotcha.
And they're able to identify bodies that way too. It's amazing. I rather like the idea of very elderly, uncaught serial killers shaking in their shoes at the notion that, you know, what if my daughter joins 23andMe? I'll be doomed.
Yeah.
Why should they enjoy a peaceful old age? You know, their victims didn't.
Exactly. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
You know, again, it just the work you do. It's unparalleled. I mean,
and just looking on Facebook, you can find all sorts of things. A lot of times people who run away from home, kids who run away, still maintain an active social media presence. And like I once
great point.
The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and I was like, this girl who's missing, well, as of 5 minutes ago, she was at this McDonald's complaining about the wait in line because she had checked in at that McDonald's and it was on her Facebook page. And
wow.
Amazing.
Wow. Isn't that awesome?
Once again, everything that we, sometimes technology, we give it the bad rap if it's not as fast as we want. But man, when we can do things like that, it's a good thing.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Meaghan, thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
I hope that you will let us check in again with you at some point. And we will. I'll tell you what we're going to do, DH. We're going to run her information on our page, and and I want to do that on a continuous basis from time to time for folks to check in with the Charley Project, and we're going to at least do that.
And we'll put a link.
Thank you very much.
We'll put a link on the website as well. That'll take them.
We'll put her link on there as well. That's exactly right.
Exactly what we'll that way. And again, Meaghan, thank you for everything you do, and thank you for joining us. And DC,
another great show, man.
Yeah, brother, great show. A little different than what we normally do, but I think this is so important. And to be honest with you, I think this is something that I would like to, maybe come back and revisit from time to time and make sure we're
absolutely
helping with this.
We want to try to do our part at least, as much as we possibly can.
Definitely.
All right.
Brother.
I'd always be happy to chat.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Meaghan. All right.
That's going to do it for another episode of D&D Dynamite 80s. I'm DH.
And I'm DC. Take care, my friends.
Take care, folks.
Stay safe.